Hi, in this session I am going to talk about wetland. Wetlands are areas of land where land surface is covered by water for a significant period of the year. The water table is actually lies above or close to the ground level. It is a vital link between land and water, and it support a vegetation and ecosystem which is actually adapted for live in saturated soils. This wetland can be natural or artificial, and it has many vital functions in the ecosystem. Importance: I am just pointing out few importance of the major importance of the wetland. One is the prevention of shoreline erosion, then reduce the impact of floods because it can absorb a huge amount of water. It improve water quality. It's actually have a filtration system. It has natural water filtration and water storage capacity. It's absorb pollution because of the huge biodiversity which is there, which including plants, animals, and everything. So it can actually absorb a huge amount of pollution. It helps in removal of nitrogen and phosphorus, which is actually responsible for eutrophication and many other problems in the rivers, lakes, and sea. So this wetland can actually absorb this uh, pollutants. It actually recharges the groundwater, and has a role in carbon sequestration. And it is one of the most productive ecosystem in the world, and it is also sustainable biodiversity. It is habitat for animals and plants. Then uh, it feeds several different types of aquatic plants and animals. It is shoreline stabilization and storm control. It is a part of biogeochemical cycle, and it has role in recreational, historical, scientific, and cultural values, and it has aesthetic appreciations also. So it's very much important in an ecosystem. This table summarizes the services provided by the wetlands. So what are the threats to the wetland? And as with the earlier resources, human activities are the major threats to wetlands also. It causes the degradation and loss of wetland by changing the water quality, quantity, and flow rate, then increase the pollutants input and changing the species composition. Then unsustainable development is another issue. Making buildings, filling the wetlands with for further development or farming in the wetland, everything will deteriorate the wetlands. Then climate change, largely it affects the wetlands. Maybe it leads to the rise in sea levels or increase in salinity, increase in acidity, the temperature changes, everything affects wetland. Hydrological alterations in the wetland, because this is because of the human activities. The hydrological changes alters the chemistry and community structure of the plants. These hydrological alterations in the wetlands include deposition of fill material for development. So we know that sometimes people fill the land for construction of roads, maybe for buildings, for houses, for resorts, everything. Then drainage development for farming or mosquito control will actually leads to the deterioration of wetland. Wetland need to have the water table. If the water is lost, the properties will everything will change. Then over extraction of groundwater from the nearby areas will actually reduce the water table. Then diversion of flow to or from wetland. So then construction of dams alter the flow of water to the wetlands. Then we have pollutions. All type of pollutions leads to the degradation of the wetland, and land degradation like sediments, fertilizers, human sewage, animal waste, road salt, pesticides, heavy metals. Everything will cause negative effects in wetland. Okay, it runoff from the different areas, urban areas, agricultural areas, domestic areas, silviculture area. Everything will end up in wetland, and which will be accumulated there. It's like a accumulation of pollutants in the wetland. If the wetlands has a capacity to alleviate pollution, but if the input of pollutants is high, it will be accumulated there. And even the air pollution can be accumulated there. The acid rain can affect this wetland. Plastics. The plastic contamination is a huge issue for the wetland because these plastic bottles and single time use plastics are accumulated in the wetland. Then we have vegetation damage. The vegetations are the key part for maintaining the physical, chemical, and biological structure of the wetlands. If the vegetation is damaged by grazing or the overexploitation, or for by the introduction of the invasive species or removal of the vegetation, this thing can actually harm the wetlands. How to manage wetland? Wetlands are considered as the one of the fragile area of the ecosystem. So there are the wetlands are actually important. It plays an important role in climate regulation, and the changes in the climate also affect wetlands. There is a mutual relationship between the climate change as well as the wetland. So to in order to protect wetlands, there is a need of elaborated policies and national international collaboration. For that, there was a convention called the Convention on the Wetlands for International Importance in Ramsar, Iran, 1971. In this convention, these different nations has formulated the outline for the conservation of wetlands. In the memory of this convention, the 2nd of February of every year is actually celebrated as the Wetland Day. National wetland, based on this convention, India was also a part of this convention. So based on this convention, we have formulated our wetland conservation plan in 1985 and 86. Based on this plan, we aims to prevent further degradation of wetland. So major guidelines of this national wetland conservation plan include the identification of the wetland by the state authorities, and central agencies will fund for the conservation of this wetland, and management action plans will be formulated by the state, and it will be approved by the central government. Research projects will be sanctioned by the central government for studying the importance and its changes and everything in the wetland. Next, the National Environmental Policy (NEP) 2006 actually outlined. It's actually given a legal framework for the conservation of the wetland. It is legalized that the wetlands will be conserved, so any alteration to the wetland will be punishable. And wetland rule came up in 2017, which mandate the setting up of state level wetland authority, then prohibition of detrimental activities in the wetland, and if somebody violate this prohibited do this prohibited activity in the wetland, it is legally punishable. Then creation of the digital inventory, setting up of national level committees, and penalties for uh, uh, wetland encroachment and everything will be punishable under this law. Then apart from that, we can actually do something for conservation of the wetland, which include declaration of wetlands as the national parks or reserves to keep it away from the development and avoid degradation. They maintain wetlands and adjacent buffer strip as an open space instead of having constructions. Removal of the pollutants and reduction of the pollution is always good for all type of water sources, including wetlands. Harvest Harvesting of exotic organism will helps the vegetation. Then constructed wetland for purpose of stormwater management and pollution removal. Instead of uh, diverting the polluted water to the natural wetland, we can actually create artificial wetland for that purposes. Promoting public education and awareness. Afforestation of negatively affected uh, wetlands with the native species. Shoreline to shoreline prevention of shoreline erosion is also done to prevent this deterioration of the wetlands. Thank you.